Fire Prevention Week will take place this year, October 8th through the 14th, 2023, with the theme Cooking Safety Starts With You. Pay attention to fire prevention. In this hour, we'll discuss the importance of this year's theme, how your department can participate, and share tips and ideas you can use for public education throughout the year. I'm Michael McLear with the Michigan State Firemen's Association, and I'm going to be moderating today's roundtable discussion. Before we start, I want to remind everyone at 2:20 Eastern Time today, there will be a FEMA alert going out to all electronic devices, phones, tablets, and also to the broadcast media. So just be aware of that. You may want to silence your device so that you can focus on the webinar or the roundtable here this afternoon. I also want to recognize and thank the sponsor of today's discussion, First Alert. For more than 65 years, First Alert has been committed to providing innovative home safety technologies and products to help protect what matters most. For more information, you can visit First Alert by going to the web at www.firstalert.com. We're happy to have you here, and we're happy to have a panel of subject matter experts with us during this roundtable. Our focus is to discuss ways you can reduce risk throughout your community. The first guest I'd like to introduce is Bruce Bausch from the United States Fire Administration. Bruce?
Good day, everyone. Pleasure to be here. I'm thankful for the opportunity. I represent the United States Fire Administration, and I work in the National Fire and Emergency Medical Services Division, which then falls into the Prevention and Special Operations branch. So it's great to be here today. Thank you.
Thank you, Bruce. Next, I'd like Josh Fulbright from the South Carolina Fire Marshal's Office to introduce himself.
Thank you, Michael, and thank you for having me. I have a pleasure of serving as the Chief of Community Risk Reduction here with the Office of State Fire Marshal in South Carolina, where I lead a team of 7 tasked with data analysis, curriculum coordination, and outreach. We have the ability to coordinate our statewide CRR through our Fire Safe South Carolina program, and we manage our fire fatality research through our community loss education and response team. Have the pleasure of also serving as a Vision 2020 technical advisor to the CEF, Statewide Collaboration Engagement Framework, and also as well work with NFPA as a South Carolina representative to NFPA, as well as the education section vice chair.
Thank you, Josh. We're so glad to have you with us as well. And last but not least, Andrea Vastes with the National Fire Protection Association. Andrea?
Thank you so much, Michael. I really appreciate this. Thanks to NVFC and to all of you who are here today. Andrea Vastes. I'm wearing my Sparky hat today. There you go. I'm Senior Director of Public Education at NFPA, the National Fire Protection Association, with oversight of our fire and life safety and wildfire risk reduction efforts. I've been with NFPA for 5 years. My background is in public health and health education, and I'm, again, so excited that here we are once again talking about Fire Prevention Week and all things fire safety. So thanks so much for having me, and I really appreciate being here along with my esteemed colleagues.
Absolutely. Thank you, Andrea. Glad to have you here as well. And thank you all for being here today. Today's discussion will last about an hour, depending on how many questions we receive. I have some questions in front of me, and we're ready to start the discussion, but we're also taking questions from you, our audience. So if you do have a question, please leave a comment, and we'll try and answer that during this 1-hour session. With that, let's go ahead and get started. Andrea, the first question is for you. How does the National Fire Protection Association choose the topic or theme for Fire Prevention Week each year?
Thanks. Yes. So, every year, as soon as one Fire Prevention Week finishes, we start thinking about the next year's theme again, right? And we are at 101 years and running, which is really great. But looking at a theme is really 3 criteria. One, it must be data driven. So it's what is the fire issue? What is the data telling us? Might be something that is an emerging trend, something that is continuing to happen, or something that unfortunately might be getting worse. And then when we start to look at that topic, and whether it's a smoke alarm issue or something else, we tailor within that. Then it needs to be actionable. What within it do we want people to do? In the year of that we did learn the sounds of fire safety, for instance, the issue was we still had a lot of people not understanding what the sounds were. We know smoke alarms are important. The data says it. And during the pandemic, we got a glimpse into people's living rooms where the chirp was happening behind them and they were not paying attention to it or not understanding what was going on. And then we needed to give them an action. What does this mean and what can they do about it? And then it needs to be universal, something that we can apply across the board, whether it's geography or age, but there's something for everyone that they can engage in that theme.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, thank you very much. Andrea, why cooking safety? Why wouldn't we pick another theme? Why is that this year's focus? What are the issues there?
Yeah, and that's a good question, because last year when it was our 100th anniversary, we thought to ourselves 100 years later, what's different? And that's how we ended up with, fire won't wait, plan your escape, because 100 years later, fire is faster. Wildfires are more prolific, they're moving faster, they're more frequent, and home fire is moving faster due to that variety of factors. So this year, when we started looking at what's going on and we're looking at the data, well, we have a few things going on. First, cooking still is the #1 cause of home fire and home fire injuries, which again, as a daily behavior, we get that, it makes sense. But some things aren't getting better. Unattended cooking is still a top cause within that. So we're still having something going on with distracted cooking, people walking around. And the other thing that we're seeing is, even as we see a decline in reported home fires, what we haven't seen is a concurrent decline in cooking fire related deaths. That has stayed level. So we're not making any progress in the severity of some of these cooking fires.
Hey, good to know. Would you share with the audience the pay attention piece for this year's theme?
Yeah, I think that was one of the things that when we were talking to some of our fire service friends and people on the ground, or what are the things you keep seeing happening? And they're like, people are just making some of the same mistakes over and over again, and they're not intentional. Very few people are putting something on the stove and saying, I'm walking away, right? I don't need to monitor this. But what is happening is we're getting distracted. And for many of us who are working at home, I sometimes work on my kitchen island and I've got stuff going on in the stove, but I have a work phone and I have a personal cell phone and I've got this happening. And, we get distracted very easily. And then, I've got a delivery and a box is being delivered to my front door. So the pay attention piece is the fact that we are managing to this plethora, right? This myriad of alerts, notifications, and things. And that is drawing us away from the critical piece of watching that stove and watching what we're heating.
Outstanding. That's so important. This year's call to action for cooking safety. How can people cook safely? What are some tips that our colleagues here on today's roundtable can take away and they can implement in their community?
Yeah, I think really the messages that we need to be promoting are, I know it's an oldie but a goodie. We always talked about stand by your pan, but it's stay with what you heat, right? Watch with what you heat, stay with it. And so that's first and foremost is being there with it. What are the other kinds of things in terms of what your environment looks like? Turning your pot handles inward. Kids are still bearing the brunt of the scald burns, the contact burns. So #1, we want kids 3 feet, 1 meter away from the stove, where areas, the grills, anything that's getting hot and where hot foods are being served. But we know that sometimes kids get curious and get close. And so we want to make sure those pot handles are turned in. Things like setting a timer just to remind you, that's the distraction part. If I have something simmering, I'll set a timer in 7-minute increments or 5-minute increments just to remind me, even if I'm just sitting at my computer in the kitchen island, because now I'm heads down, right? And then it's that lid. I've said it before, if everybody stayed in the kitchen and had a lid nearby, we would see a huge difference in the data and in the fire behavior, because people are there and they would be able to act very quickly with that lid, which really does make a difference at the start of or when a fire is about to happen.
Absolutely. When people are cooking, Sometimes grease ends up on the stove, or they're baking and sometimes grease ends up in the oven. Does that pose a problem, and how can we use this year's theme to be able to educate, empower, and inform others?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's part of to the sort of prepare your area before you even begin. Take a look, clean up any old spills. Make sure there aren't any old spills. Make sure there isn't anything flammable right near the range top. The range top is where the majority of these fires are happening. So certainly, we want people cleaning out their ovens, and oven fires do happen. But if that range top is the most, and that leftover grease that may or may not look like grease anymore is going to act like grease when it gets heated up, and I think that's the piece people need to understand is, heat plus flammable things equals fire.
Absolutely. Andrea, great tips. I thank you very much. We'll come back to you here. I've got a question for Josh. How does the Fire Prevention Week theme and its annual theme each year support overall statewide and local community risk reduction efforts? You certainly represent a state fire marshal's office. You're the chief of community risk reduction. How can you help our colleagues today implement this statewide or locally?
Sure. Thanks, Michael. So to piggyback off some of the things that Andrea said, so 15 years ago, I started in public safety, and I started out on the local level, actually in law enforcement, not via the fire service. And I bring that up because we had National Night Out at the time, and it was one day a year. We have Fire Prevention Week. We have a whole week, and Fire Safety Month is a whole month to celebrate the theme of what's going on, not only nationally, but locally in our community. So utilize Fire Prevention Week as a way to reinforce what risks are nationally relevant and scalable in our communities. As we know, community risk reduction overall is a process. It starts with understanding CRR, completing a risk assessment on a state or local level, then developing that plan of action to address and implement the 5 E's of CRR, looking for some of those short-term impacts, long-term outcomes, and ultimately ensuring we're having those desired outcomes. So thinking specifically about the E's, so education, engineering, enforcement, economic incentives, and emergency response on a state and local level. So education is a very valuable intervention, but we know it's often very easy to implement, but it's considered very weak when it's used by itself. And so we're thankful for our sponsors here with First Alert and smoke alarms specifically as an engineering intervention. But what another intervention that we often don't think about are things like smart burners. We've got some case studies, some really good examples from friends in Worcester and friends in Brighton, Colorado, where smart burners by pioneering technology have reportedly eliminated stovetop cooking incidents to 0. And so thinking about how to incorporate all the E's together, utilizing the Fire Prevention Week thing this year is very important. It's very relevant to us here in South Carolina this year. Unfortunately, in May, we lost firefighter James Muller in the Irma Fire District to a situation that was attributed to unattended cooking materials. And so behind me, you actually see our State Fire Service Memorial. And so I want to pay respect to that fire district, firefighter Muller, and also say that this is a very relevant theme for us.
Absolutely. Josh, I'm so sorry for the loss, and thank you for sharing that, because again, the best emergency is the emergency that doesn't happen. And if we take these steps and we incorporate outreach and continue to focus on community risk reduction, we keep everyone, including our members, but our citizens, safe as possible. What key audiences, Josh, do you focus on in your statewide fire prevention messaging?
Sure. So we all know that nationally, cooking fire is the #1 cause of home fires and home fire injuries. And Andrea pointed out some of those injuries that are relevant. But in our state, cooking fires are regularly in the top 4 known causes of deadly fires, alongside smoking, heating, and electrical. Since 2017, we've lost over 70 individuals known to cooking fires, and over half of them are actually over the age of 50. And so when we look at groups that we're targeting with our messages, it shouldn't just be children. Yes, children in our schools are a great way to get messaging out, get it home, go into the families, and ultimately getting them to take that messaging to grandma and grandpa, and making sure that we're understanding who is impacted by cooking fires. Researching fatal fires for us is very important. It's helped us to learn not only the most probable cause, but why people fail to egress from or are alerted to fires. We've got to consider socioeconomics, human factors, housing factors, other things that ultimately aggravate those risky behaviors related to cooking that Andrea mentioned. For example, not being able to afford smoke alarms, mobility issues while we age. It's important that we share the fire prevention messaging to other partners like DHEC, Office on Aging, our fire service associations and local fire service, to name a few, to help us get the messages out across our community.
Absolutely. Great information. Thank you for sharing. Has your statewide risk assessment or local community risk assessment found any particular risk behaviors in certain populations?
Sure. So, like I said, it was specifically related to those folks over the age of 50. That's over half of those that we are losing. And so while we do have serious injuries, some of the most community significant injuries are those deaths. And depending on the size of the populations within our communities across our state, the volunteer versus paid fire service, some of those things are very significant. And so while we on a state level definitely try to learn and understand what's happening with respect to our fatal fires, we do make sure that we partner with our burn centers, our hospitals, our coroner's offices, et cetera, to make sure that we're learning about not only fatal, but some of the non-fatal injuries.
Outstanding. Thanks for sharing that. Josh, what successes have you and your state fire marshal's office had engaging Fire Prevention Week throughout your state?
Sure. So got to give a shout out to our local partners with State Farm. Our State Farm agents have been great in making sure that we have materials not only to showcase here on a state level from Fire Prevention Week activity materials from NFPA, but also to distribute in some of the larger events and activities across our state. We have a really good partnership with our Adventure Children's Museum in Columbia. And so every year we make sure that the new banner is displayed prominently at the front door just before our annual Tame the Flame event, which happened to be this past Sunday. And so that new banner stays there throughout the course of October, and then it goes in our fire safety exhibit for the rest of the calendar year. And so we make sure that it's prominently displayed in there for all who come to visit. Some of the other things that may not be within things that we commonly think about, but don't miss out on opportunities to look to some of our public messaging boards. So you see public messaging boards across your cities, and they often will donate space to you as a tax write-off. And you can get messaging up in your communities on major thoroughfares, et cetera. Make sure you're making yourself relevant throughout this week, but also throughout the course of the month. Our existing partnerships through Fire Safe South Carolina, Sound Off with the Home Fire Safety Patrol in schools, and then regular presentations or other opportunities to showcase these messages. But we really rely on partnerships to reinforce them and spread them throughout the community.
Excellent advice. Thank you very much. What advice do you have for other state fire marshals across the country or local departments whose resources may be limited? You talked about some of the resources that are out there, but I constantly hear the comment, well, we can't do effective outreach because we're a volunteer department. Do you offer any suggestions for those folks?
Sure. So this is not the time to operate on the island of one. Get out there. Don't discredit free or available opportunities. You don't have to have a huge staff or a large budget to utilize the Fire Prevention Week materials. Stand up at church, put flyers in the post office or the grocery store, call on community partners with insurance companies, businesses, other agencies, Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, et cetera, to get the messaging out to stakeholders to extend your resources. It's a great time to get folks involved that may not be ready to go interior. So think about your fire service recruits. Think about folks in local colleges, high schools, your spouses, school groups, church groups, et cetera, that can help you get those messages out. And so this is a really good time to keep yourself relevant within your community and build that community equity. And ultimately, hopefully you can cash in on that and deal with some of the resource gaps that you're dealing with in your local community.
Great advice, my friend. Thank you very much. We're going to move on to Bruce Bausch for the United States Fire Administration. Your U.S. Fire Administration has great resources. And Bruce, beyond kitchen fires, does the USFA have safety information on other cooking methods and other safety information?
Oh, absolutely, because you cannot forget about the grills and, maybe the open fire pits. You might be trying to do some hot dogs the old-fashioned way. So we have a lot of great information that deals with that to prevent the burns or even fire to transgress from the fire pit to the surrounding area. So you want to make sure you have your areas cleared. So we have great information on that. And then to follow up with that, we also have grill safety. And so, that's something to think about too. when you're, providing, meal for a family, what do we usually do? We sit out there and we drink a little bit, we, wander around, maybe pop back into the house to get something. And that's at that point in time when something goes wrong. So it's important to follow the guidelines that are provided by making sure you don't have the grill too close to the vinyl siding, around, close to the handrail of the deck, all those type of things that are, to think about. And it's all available to you on our website. And of course, the ever wonderful turkey fryer safety. We definitely have information on that as well. One of the basic things that I found very productive when I was telling to people was to utilize the water technique. Take the turkey out, put the water in that pot, dip it in, find out how much it's going to displace. And once you have it at a safe level, take that turkey out. Now you know how much oil you should actually place in that pot. And it's very effective because, if you got that novice out there, the amateur just got it because they can't wait to have that fried turkey. They load it all up, get it all hot, and then they dump that turkey in there and instantly have a conflagration. And of course, they probably have some canopy out there because it might be snow or something too. So now they have a bigger fire than they anticipated. So yes, we have lots of great information, and I'll be glad to share some actual images from our website later on in this webinar.
That's excellent. We appreciate that very much. Do the pictographs on the United States Fire Administration website come in other languages as well? We know our communities are diverse. And how can departments engage different language speakers in community risk reduction?
Well, to answer the first question, is actually a very large, long study that transpired. And it was discovered that the language that is on our pictographs is very minimal. And it is in English, and tested across all the different languages. It was found that was the best way and most agreeable way to present that information. And for those that aren't familiar with the pictographs, they are just animated images that you can place in succession. So that allows you to provide prevention information in front of someone. And you may have that language barrier where you just do not understand each other. That's fine. It's been found that these pictographs will actually tell that story. And one of the great things is you can utilize any of the pictographs on our site and, and put it in any order you wish or how you feel is the best for presentation, and make it yours. So it's great for that aspect. When it comes to language for departments, one of the things you can do is utilize, and NFPA is the same way too. We have different languages in our brochures and flyers, and so they're already pre-printed and ready to go. So that is available to you. And one of the cool parts is you can actually put your department's information at the bottom of it too. So it looks like it's not only is it branded NFPA, USFA, what have you, it's branded from your department. So it gives you that direct contact and involvement in your community. So it's a beautiful thing.
Absolutely, absolutely. And tell the audience, how much does this cost if they want to use the pictographs?
Well, the bad part is you already paid for it. So it came out of your taxes. And that's what's the good thing about it. Everything that has come out on our website and everything available to you is no cost because it's already your tax dollars at work. And we're grateful for the opportunity to use those tax dollars appropriately so that you can do a little bit better outreach within your communities and make that benefit serve you, so you can have less calls for service. And if you do have those calls for service, you're not reporting on a fatality fire.
Excellent. Excellent. Thank you for sharing that, because sometimes people think they have to pay money, and here's a great resource if they don't have a budget. There's great high quality materials out there. Bruce, what suggested courses does the United States Fire Administration's National Fire Academy offer that would best help our practitioners in the area of risk reduction?
That's an awesome question. I was already prepared for that because I've already spoken with Mike Weller, who does a tremendous job here. We both come out of Maryland, and he did the whole thing with the up in Washington County, and it's been great working with him when I was at the state fire marshal's office, and it's even better that we're on the same team here at the federal level. You can always start with just a couple of the courses that are online, and you can do the introduction to strategic community risk reduction, and there's an introduction to community risk assessments. And these are the basis for you doing CRR in your community. It gives you that footstep you need to initiate what you need to accomplish. When you're doing CRR, you're not just doing outreach. It's about studying and your community, knowing the risk, knowing the demographics and what can happen in this area versus this area versus this area, and getting that data so that you can curtail your risk reduction needs to address that situation in that community to better provide for life safety for everyone involved.
Absolutely.
And of course, there's so many other courses, fundamentals of fire and life safety education. We have 6-day courses that bring you right here on campus. We love to have you because the food is great and the atmosphere is wonderful, and everybody loves going to Ott House so they can share their stories there as well. So we're great to have you. And then anytime you do come on campus, please come find me.
Absolutely. And there's no cost to lodging. It's all provided, and even there's travel stipends for reimbursement.
Yes, there are travel stipends. The only thing that your agency would be responsible for is the actual food. So it's the meals plus the breaks in your courses study. And so it's very minimal cost for great education opportunity.
And it's a great opportunity to network with others across the country and sometimes across the world, because we do have international visitors that from time to time also visit and take classes at the National Fire Academy, see what others are doing, see what their problems are and how they've addressed them as well.
Exactly. And it's great when working here, because I get to kind of mingle around. We got October 10th coming up for the Fire Summit that'll be on campus, and we're going to have some very big dignitaries that'll be a part of this. And so and everyone's not only invited on campus for this event, but it's also online. So all you need is your SID number, which I think many of us are familiar with. That SID number you have to have for any course involving USFA. You can sign up for that course, and it's considered a course, but it's an all-day event to train, take, and collaborate and look at all the things that were discussed last year and bring up any new topics for this year.
Excellent. I know you've got some video assets that you want to share with our audience today. How about if you take a moment and share your screen and share some of the great resources that the United States Fire Administration has to offer?
If I can make it work correctly, I will make sure that happens.
And while you're doing that, I'm going to remind our audience, we still have time for your questions. So please feel free to type those in the chat box so that we can make sure that we give you the information that you're looking for.
Okay, so hopefully this is working. But any opportunity you have, come to the USFA website. You'll see up in the top corner here, it's usfa.fema.gov. It's that simple. When you come on, you can come into you can see across the board across here, you can go through the Fire Academy and look at all the courses we have to offer. Of course, the NFIRS program, which by this time next year should probably be renamed the NERIS program. Which is going to be more up to date, where your NFIRS is fully dependent on when people finally get the information turned into their state, and then it gets rolled in. Sometimes it's a year, 2 years out before we have that data collection. NERIS is going to be more real time. It's going to be automatically collected. So stay tuned for that. It's going to really improve our outreach efforts. And of course, we go into the prevention section. And you can go into the community, it's prevention and community risk reduction. And what you'll notice right off the bat is Fire Prevention Week. So we were very in tune with our partners at FPA. We're so grateful for the opportunity to work with them so closely on all of the events when it comes to fire and life safety. But you can go explore the resources. I wanted to bring you down here because, as Josh was speaking of, community risk reduction, there's a whole section here about learning about CRR, and of course, the big 5 E's that we should all have ingrained and written across our foreheads, because that's what it's all about. It is about the education, the engineering, the enforcement, economic incentives, and of course the emergency response. All of those are necessary in order to make CRR truly complete. Another thing you'll find out is if we hit explore resources, there you go, cooking fire safety, perfect for this year's activities. The information is in here. You can go to, you can scroll down the screen and you have messages to share. These are things that are already made up for you. They're already vetted. They're already, I can't think of the name of the word for it. All of a sudden I was prepared for this. But the language is set up for the public, so you don't have to worry about retyping or anything. You can just, you can click on it, use it, and copy it and paste it onto anything you're trying to do for documents, or if you're sharing it on social media. Speaking of social media, our graphics and our stock photos. And we're always looking for more stock photos too. So if anyone out there has any fire scene pictures or anything else that they would like to share, you can share that with USFA and we'll make sure that it gets properly vetted and installed into our collection. So that way, and it's also, once again, available to everyone at no cost. The pictographs that I'd mentioned earlier, where you can use any succession. You can pick and choose anything you want to do, but you're able to just stand in front of someone and use basic skills and be able to profess a fire prevention message among any demographic, any language. It's there for your use. Of course, our handouts, as I've mentioned, you can select in different languages, and also when you pull it off, you'll see customized with your logo aspects. You can put your own information in, as I've mentioned. And that covers all the different topics. And there's obviously a much wider range than what you're seeing on the screen today. And as I mentioned, the turkey fryer, well, that's important as well. So I just wanted to point that out. Now, we do have an interactive video. And let's see, what time is it? 2:32. Okay, so I got a few minutes here. I'll do a little portion of this as an introduction. But this video, if you notice, you click on that YouTube thing at the bottom because enlarging it is not open on our site. But if you do this, you'll see this welcome.
Interactive kitchen. You can move your mobile device around or use your mouse to drag the screen and look around the kitchen. Cooking is often relaxing and fun, and the kitchen is a wonderful place for families and friends to gather. But did you know cooking is also the leading cause of home fires and home fire injuries? There are simple steps you can take to prevent a kitchen fire from happening in your home. Around this kitchen, you will see some of the most common kitchen fire hazards and how you can easily fix them. Pan around this kitchen scene. Can you spot the potential fire hazards?
I've zoned in one there. That looks like a situation.
If you need more time to look around, pause the video and restart it when you're ready.
But it points them out. So anyone watching this gets the gist of it and gets the basic understanding.
Unplug small appliances when you are not using them. Make sure you are awake and alert. Alcohol and some drugs can make you sleepy. Move things that can burn away from the stove. This includes dish towels, boxes, bags, papers, and curtains.
The flammable items that Andrea had mentioned earlier.
Wear short sleeves or roll them up so they don't catch on fire. Turn pot handles towards the back of the stove so no one can bump them or pull them over. Keep children and pets at least 3 feet from a hot stove.
My wife would be furious about a dog on the counter.
Keep an eye on what you fry. Most cooking fires start when someone is frying food. Watch what you are cooking. Fires start when the heat is too high. If you see any smoke or the grease starts to boil, turn the burner off. Always keep a pan lid or baking sheet nearby when you cook. If a small grease fire starts in a pan, slide the lid or baking sheet over the pan. Do not move the pan. To keep the fire from restarting, leave the covering on until the pan has cooled. Do your part to keep yourself and your family and friends safe while you cook. Following these simple steps can make a big difference when it comes to fire safety in your kitchen.
And of course, these free resources are there for you. So I appreciate this time today, and I look forward to any additional questions that anyone has to share.
Excellent. Thank you, Bruce. That was very informational, and I think we all learned something. We do have a question and answer question here from Robert Brooks, and he asked, and I'm going to direct this to Andrea, are we seeing more and updated fire prevention messages and materials for our visually and hearing impaired neighbors? Would you like to take that one?
Sure, thanks. And it's the right question because, I think one of the things that whenever we're doing this work, we need to say, are we serving everyone? Is anyone being left out of the campaign, of the conversation? Should we be doing something, right? What does inclusivity really mean? Is that everybody has the access to this. And so, I think one of the things that we can all do better at, and certainly we're attempting to do better at, is things like making sure any new video we make is opened captioned. And thank you, Nancy Trench, who is my guru and in this is, it's not enough that if it's on YouTube, you can close caption it. Open captioning means that you have built it in, it's already there. And so, for instance, we have a new fire safety in the city video that addresses home fire escape planning and multifamily and apartment housing. The open captioning is now embedded, and we are doing more and more of that open captioning embedded into our videos. So we should be doing that anyway, because even if we're playing something really loud, we don't know who in the room, when we're in a classroom or place that we are in a group presentation, people may or may not have a hearing ability. I think one of the things also is that we're doing a better job, for instance, in our smoke alarms. I thank the Red Cross now, because the Red Cross has automatically embedded bed shakers now into their smoke alarm installation programs. And we are trying to do a better job of making it just standard operating procedure. Is the question you should be asking is, can everyone hear the alarm? Is there anyone in the home who needs a different plan? So whether you're doing home visits or you're having the conversation with families and kids, is there anyone who might not be able to do what we just described because of a physical limitation, a sensory issue, and then we need to ask the question and address and give those answers. I think certainly the other thing that we can be doing a better job on is large print materials. Is starting to making sure that we have our materials in a fashion that there are large print versions available. Certainly, we try to do things in a 12 or 13 point font, but if you're going under, you really shouldn't be. If you want to be universal, make everything in a 15 point font or 16 point font, but then you can't fit it all on a page and there's this whole thing, right? But we can do better, and we're trying to do more of that and trying to be more pictorial and in terms of for literacy issues even, right? And that's one of the beauties of things like pictographs and infographics is it's literacy, it's visual impairment, it's hearing impairment, it's physical disabilities. And I think that we need to do better. And I think that would be a great topic for a webinar in the future, is how we can actually embed that into our work.
Absolutely. Bruce or Josh, do you have anything that you want to add to that? Again, fire prevention materials for visually impaired, hearing impaired neighbors?
Sure. So I'll add a little bit in regards to the deaf, hard of hearing, those who could benefit from smoke alarms in those areas, et cetera. So a few years ago, we were approached by our local hearing loss association here in South Carolina, specifically in the Columbia area. And we had put out some materials in regards to the deaf and use the term hearing impaired. And we were approached and we were actually asked to change our rhetoric to deaf, hard of hearing, because the word impairment they shared with us that the perception was it was insensitive to American Sign Language as a linguistic minority. And so it's something interesting that we were completely not aware of, didn't mean to step on any toes, but it was an opportunity to build equity with those members of our community, because it was something really simple. We were just able to change some rhetoric on our flyers and stuff of that sort. And since then, our deaf, hard of hearing community have really come around us as the fire service on a state level, helping connecting us with funders. We've been able to get through Lifetone Technology hundreds of deaf, hard of hearing alarms, get with local fire service to get those installed in homes across our state. We have mechanisms in place to get those back if those are no longer needed. But one thing I'll tell you is when you go down that road of that being another engineering technology that you're going to use to intervene in risk in your state, make sure that you take care of your fire service. As we age and the things that we encounter on the job sites, we may be vulnerable to some of that degenerative hearing loss and may not be able to hear smoke alarms ourselves. And sometimes us being the advocates in our own situations, in our own community, that's the best possible way to get the messaging out within that community. And so don't miss those opportunities.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Josh. Bruce, anything you'd like to add to this?
Well, this discussion reminds me of a conversation I was having with a lady that called and had some specific questions about some fire safety. Well, during the conversation, her low battery alarm was going off the entire time, and she wasn't even aware of it. She couldn't hear it. That's that's obviously there's something that needs to be brought up. So I've actually taken that to UL, and during the ICC or FCAC codes that I was at in Chicago last week, it was also brought up for discussion as well as, maybe there's something else we need to look at when it comes to development. So as a result of that discussion, I've done what we're supposed to do. We collaborate and, bring it up for discussion and see what else we can do to maybe improve things, and whether it's product or just in the way we do things. So, it's important.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Bruce, thanks for sharing that. Appreciate it very much. Andrea, I'm going to start with you on the next question. Aaron asks the question, how are we trying to get teens involved or interested in fire safety? And obviously in Massachusetts, we've got a very unique program with the Student Awareness of Fire Education program, SAFE, through the State Fire Marshal's office, where we're educating preschool through 12th grade. But what is the NFPA doing? I can speak more to SAFE if we have time.
Yeah, I think again, that's one of the groups of people that it's the crafting of the message, but it's really what we would say is the medium. How are we going to get it out there? So, we do have lesson plans that are oriented towards teens that are for cooking, and it's oriented to, you might be doing the cooking at home, you might be babysitting, you might be caring for your siblings. So here are the things to know. So it's putting it in the position of, what do you need to know to do this, not just to keep yourself safe, but your younger siblings and your house people safe. I would say that. I think the other thing is, and we don't have it, it's not something we've built up yet, and I know a lot of departments are doing it. Got to do it on TikTok. This is where it's about where it's coming from too, not just what the message is. But I think, and that's just has to be targeted to certain really key things. I know we talk a lot about this with the college students, and that teen group ends up being very elusive for a lot of reasons. And part of it is developmentally, they're thinking about a bunch of different things. But we've got to do, if we're going to do it, it's going to have to use like things like TikTok and some of those platforms that they're on to make it interesting and exciting, and something that just is attractive and even takes up any space in their heads.
Absolutely. Josh, would you like to add anything to this?
Echo what Andrea said. Quick, easily digestible messaging. A lot of what we do here at the State Fire Marshal's office, like Bruce and Andrea with their respective organizations, we publish fire and life safety guides, bulleted quick tips that fire service can rebrand as their own, get those messages out, because we know that folks have that information overload. And so we try to get those messages out via social media. Some agencies are definitely more progressive in terms of going past and beyond Twitter and Facebook, et cetera. And so that's definitely encouraged, but we also have to realize that there's security things and stuff of that sort that and concerns with respective agencies. And so we definitely try to make sure that we're getting that message out there. We try to make it where it can be translated into those resources if needed.
Excellent, Josh. Thank you. Bruce, anything you'd like to add?
Well, it can also be part of your recruitment retention aspect too, because, you know, these young ones are trying to come in, they're trying to do a few things and they grasp things differently. Well, guess what? They are the ones you need to ask questions of. And, you know, how do we reach folks your age? And, you know, we can learn from them just as they can learn from us. You know, our goal is to teach them how to become an old firefighter. But the same thing is, you know, now it's their job to show us what we can do to change what we do so we can get that more outreach out there. And that came out weird, but more outreach out there so that we can accomplish the goals that we really intend, because, you know, it's fire safety starts at a young age. We all know that. You know, it starts with the stop, drop, and roll and things like that, and that loss area where they start becoming know-it-alls because, you know, they're teenagers. They already know it all. But, you know, if we can put in something digestive that relates to the way they think and what they look for when they're looking for entertainment, then we're on the right track.
Absolutely. In Massachusetts, I served there in the fire service for 18 years. And one of the things we did through the Department of Fire Services was we continued outreach and expanding our successful fire education programming for elementary, middle, and high school students, even into older adults, because we were seeing both in the Commonwealth and across the country, older adult fire deaths were certainly on the rise, as we were seeing our youth fire deaths were on the decline. And proud to say that the colleagues out there have done a remarkable job during the years of COVID of 2020, 2021. I believe even in 2022, 0 fire deaths for youth under the age of 18 years of age because of the Student Awareness of Fire Education program. And to my knowledge, it's the only state that has a comprehensive program that works with the Department of Education and has been very comprehensive. So we're raising a fire safe generation. And again, it's because of all the men and women and all the hard work they're doing. And our public educators are key stakeholders in driving that message home early and often and making it age and developmentally appropriate. That's how we engage our young people. That's how we engage our adolescents. We've had some of the colleagues that have actually taken some of those historical fires, like the Coconut Grove fire or the Beverly Hills Supper Club, and they've turned it into a PowerPoint presentation and made it very interactive for high school students. We're no longer able to teach, again, stop, drop, and roll, and the simple messaging that we're teaching at the elementary schools, but we can still have them be advocates. And one of the things I often did is I'd reach out to the high school students and have them come into the elementary schools and have them help us teach fire and life safety education. So there are some great resources. And again, hopefully that gives our colleagues here in our audience some information of things that they can do. And Bruce, I'll kind of expand on what you talked about. Fire Prevention Week is an excellent opportunity to tie in those recruitment and retention opportunities, whether it's installing smoke alarms, whether it's going out and doing public education. There are a lot of things that we can do. And when we open our doors and we share with the public, we need their help. The public-private partnership collaboration is so important for our communities to remain safe and remain vibrant and so forth. And the National Volunteer Fire Council has a very successful and longstanding campaign called MakeMeAFirefighter.org. If you're not a part of that, if you're not already signed up as a department, please do that. There's no cost. And what that portal does is it connects needs and resources together. So if you have people that are moving into the community and they're looking how they can help support their local volunteer fire department or their paid on call or other fire members of the fire service, that MakeMeAFirefighter.org is an excellent resource to be able to get needs and resources connected together. And Fire Prevention Week is a great opportunity. Andrea, do you feel Fire Prevention Week is something we should be doing just during the week that's recognized as Fire Prevention Week, or is it something we should be doing other times as well?
Well, I mean, I think a lot of people are now calling it, unofficially Fire Prevention Month, and they're doing things obviously all month long, which is fantastic. I think there's, a push and pull between doing something really high profile all year long that then becomes overkill and repetitive, right? You don't want to become noise. So I think the value of Fire Prevention Week and is that fire is still a relevant topic. it may be different, right? We might be facing different issues now than we were before, but fire is still an issue. And depending on who you are, like how it impacts you. And I think it can be either a culminating event for a year, or it can be your kickoff for the year. I've long said that when you do a fire prevention week activity, it gives you an opportunity to cast a wider net and bring more people into the fold, more followers to your social media, more people signing up for your emails and direct alerts, more opportunity to learn more about what you're doing, right? And so the Fire Prevention Week, and if you're doing it all month long, has a value. Then what you've done is you've created an audience and you've created this partnership and trust with whom you should be working all year long. And then it's like, then it's about tying it appropriately to what's going on in the year, because people are only going to pay attention if it's relevant to them. And we know that there's, our data shows this, we know that there's relevancy. So what's happening in the holidays? There are more cooking fires in the holidays. There's more electrical fires in the holidays. There's certain things, right? We're busier, we're multitasking more, we're not paying attention, we're, trying to get a bunch of things done. Now you've taken that group of people and that swell and that trust, and you can apply it there. And then, we can call them reasons and seasons, right? So now you have a season and a reason to reach out to them, and you might be targeting, you might be doing widespread things, you might be targeting people in a small segment because it's a certain time of year. And we know that older adults are more likely to fall and have these injuries at certain times of the year. And that's really what it's about. It's about using it as both a springboard and a culminating opportunity, rather than taking it in its original form. Now you give it legs.
Excellent, excellent. This has really been great information, and we don't have much time left, but Andrea, I want to ask you to talk about two things briefly, if you would. You and I both know they're very important. One is, what is the hashtag we're using this year so that our colleagues can make sure they're properly branding their content on social media?
Please use hashtag Fire Prevention Week, all one word. So just hashtag Fire Prevention Week. It will get picked up. We actually have a live Instagram feed on our website, which is firepreventionweek.org, trying to keep it as simple as possible for you. And you'll actually pop up there, but it's a great opportunity. Feel free to tag Sparky the Fire Dog if you want. You can tag NFPA. Our social media manager is great at sharing and retagging and doing all those things that I don't know how to do. And, but use the hashtag, feel free to do the tagging, grab the messaging. Again, on the toolkit page for Fire Prevention Week, if you're looking for last minute inspiration, we have ideas, we have social media assets, we have a lot of plug and play stuff for you, so that, you can use the asset and then tailor it the right way for your audience.
Actually, this year, and maybe I've missed it in the past, but this year, the educational desk reference is also tied into the Fire Prevention Week toolkit. Would you please explain to our colleagues what that is and how important and valuable it is? Everyone should have that right at their fingertips.
Yes, I appreciate that. And when Bruce was talking about the messaging in that really nice array of USFA materials, they're aligned with the educational messaging desk reference. And so this is a document that is contributed from a multidisciplinary group of people throughout US and Canada. It blends fire science, codes, pedagogy, behavioral science. It is what is the most correct thing and message we should be giving about any fire and life safety topic. So whether it's cooking, microwaves, fire pits, lithium-ion batteries, space heaters, portable fire extinguishers, right? What is the most correct, accurate, and driven by data, science, and codes thing to say? And it is organized in a, base message from, the most universal message and moves on. It is a just free resource you can download off of our website. we can plug that in. And I think the other thing is when you go to the page for the educational messages desk reference, an EMAC is what people call it because Educational Messaging Advisory Committee is the committee. So it's not NFPA. NFPA corrals them and houses it, but it's, put together. Is right now we're actually, we take them all year long, but we've actually put a call out for suggestions. So if you download your copy of EMAC, you can take a look at it and see if there are any suggestions that you want to make. There's an actual submission form. If you think that there's missing information. This last round, we updated our carbon monoxide messaging. We added a pet fire safety and a youth fire setting chapter. We're always looking at making sure that it is as most up to date. And then it's the thing that you can align your messaging to and know, again, it's vetted, it's safe, it's accurate.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Andrea, thank you for sharing that because I'm sure there's some people that don't know the benefits of the educational messaging desk reference. My friend Jeremy Smallwood from Burr Oak, Michigan asked a question, and I'm going to have to do this offline because we are running short on time. But Jeremy, I will get your question answered with our panel offline, and we'll make sure you get that information. Basically, the question was he has an area that they're serving a lot of migrant community members, farmers, and so forth. And you and I, the rest of us can talk about that. But what I'd like to do is just briefly, if each of you could maybe go around and just summarize one key point that our audience should remember, what they can do to make Fire Prevention Week outstanding. Andrea, how about if I start with you?
How you can make it outstanding. Okay, aside, I already told you about the toolkit. Celebrate your successes. We focus a lot on when things go wrong and when things go bad and when people die and get injured. Please celebrate and call out when things go right. And you should be also tapping your media for those things as well. So instead of always having to be the one to talk to them when something went wrong, tell them this happened, they knew what to do, they did the right thing, and, crisis averted. Celebrate those things from the rooftop, please.
Excellent. Great advice. Josh?
Don't let it be the only thing you do. It may be an opportunity to springboard what you're doing throughout the course of the year. But I go back to what I said when we were starting. CRR, community risk reduction, is a process. You are not going to stop all cooking fires throughout the course of the entire year during 1 week. Utilize every one of the E's, engage everyone within the department and the community. I challenge each of you to engage somebody new this year that you've not partnered with in the past. The data, there's a problem. The way to get to action is through partnerships. So make sure data plus partners equals that action. And so help them to address the limitation that you have within your jurisdiction.
Great advice, Josh. Thank you. Bruce?
Well, I'd like to say one voice. That's Dr. Lori Morell's repertoire when it comes to collaboration. It's about bringing everyone together, and the EMAC messaging is one aspect of that, because it takes everyone to come up with this proper messaging so that we are speaking in one voice. You don't want to have all kinds of different messages all over the place and this version versus that. You want to have that one voice where we're all doing it right, we're all doing it the same, so that way it's repetitive, and then people will start picking it up better. So it's about working together for that end result.
Absolutely. Bruce, very well stated. Well, thank you to our panelists, Andrea, Bruce, and Josh, for your participation and insight. Remember, audience, there are tools and resources available from your National Volunteer Fire Council, from the NFPA, from the United States Fire Administration. I want to reach out and again thank our sponsor, First Alert, for sponsoring today's roundtable discussion. You can learn more about First Alert at www.firstalert.com. And a huge shout out to the National Volunteer Fire Council for organizing today's discussion. The NVFC is a leading nonprofit membership-based association representing the interests of the volunteer fire, EMS, and rescue services. They provide resources, training, advocacy, and programs to help the volunteer emergency services thrive. You can learn more about the NVFC as well as access resources at www.nvfc.org. If you're not already a member, I want to encourage you to join. It only costs $21 a year and comes with a variety of benefits such as free training in the NVFC virtual classroom, access to the Volunteer Voices member community, and so much more. You can learn more at www.nvfc.org/join. And lastly, if we did not answer your question, please email Maggie, Maggie at nvfc.org, and we will respond later. Again, thank you to all of our audience members and our participants. Stay safe and make sure you continue to connect with your community and have a very successful fire prevention outreach. Thank you again.